It has been a theme all year long. Every time you think the Lakers have a little momentum, they take a couple steps forward, they take a step back. They're kind of unable to capitalize on the opportunities. Tonight, for the second time this season, they get blown out by Minnesota. And bottom line, guys, you can't sugarcoat it. They played poorly. Out-rebounded 61-36. That 61 is a season high for Minnesota. That's minus 25 in that department. They shot 28% from three, under 39% from the field. Got outscored in the paint. Big game, James, 48-32.
Yeah, Gita, this was a tough one overall. Everyone is going through this COVID protocol, and it just seems like the Lakers have somehow been stumbling through it all season long, whether it's injuries, COVID, suspension, whatever it might be. And Fish said something pregame that I hadn't really thought about. Like, you still got to go out and play the game, but this COVID thing's got to be wearing on people mentally. You know what I mean? I didn't really think about that because it's your family again. It's like a lot of stuff going on. So not writing off an excuse because everyone's going through it, but you could tell tonight that mentally it just didn't. I mean, they just gave up a lot of offensive rebounds from the jump. It just didn't seem like they were all in. Minnesota did what they had to do to win the game. They played well. But the Lakers it just didn't seem like it was all there mentally. And obviously they didn't have the players to back it up when you're bringing in guys from the G League. And that was a tough one to overcome. Even though Minnesota had lost 3 in a row, it just seemed like they just never got there from the beginning to me. I mean, the game was what it was, gave up a lot of stuff, but it was one I'm going to write off and just go to the next one.
Yeah. I mean, two points for me. One, for sure, there were enough Laker players talented enough to have still figured out how to win the game. So everybody's going to have to go through this at some point. Looking at this Lakers roster, there are definitely enough guys to still go out
and Minnesota's without Anthony Edwards.
And win an
it's hitting the
NBA
whole
basketball
league.
game.
Yeah.
So you can say that, but then at the same time, you still have to admit and acknowledge the fact that COVID played a role in the Lakers not being able to perform as well from a mental standpoint, from my perspective. Mm-hmm. Professional athletes are extreme compartmentalizers and creatures of habit. And when you start breaking those habits and that routine, and all of a sudden things that are certain become vastly uncertain, it's just difficult to be consistently who you are. And that's what it looked like tonight. Not an excuse. Doesn't mean you can't still go out and play and do your job. But just like James said, didn't seem like they were fully present in the moment tonight.
Brett, since this road trip, you look at the, 4 days, they've had 7 active players go in and out of the health and safety protocols. You possibly lose AD tonight. We don't know for how long. We'll get into that in a moment. But it has been a very strange week indeed for the Lakers. And here they were with an opportunity to finally get that 4-game win streak. Doesn't happen.
Yeah, I remember a situation for the Lakers going from bad to worst as quickly as tonight. Already without the 5 guys, 6 if you include Kendrick Nunn because of COVID-19 protocols. And then you lose AD towards the midpoint of that third quarter. That did not look good, Geet. Remind me of like an NFL player, maybe an offensive lineman, gets rolled up, someone he doesn't see, kind of run into his knee. All eyes will be on that MRI exam if it is indeed tomorrow in Chicago. As for the game itself, the stat that stands out for me, offensive rebounds. Mm-hmm. 15 for Minnesota, 1 for the Lakers. Their 1 was about halfway through the first quarter. LeBron missed his free throw, went and got the offensive rebound, scored on a layup. Not 1 offensive rebound for the last 42 minutes of that game. That, to me, is all you need to know. This Laker team is tired and obviously shorthanded.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, the fatigue part, I was going to say, Brad, is like we were talking at halftime, I think. Like the Lakers went out for a couple road games in the kind of Midwest area. I think they went to Oklahoma City and Memphis.
And came back.
Came back to L.A. for one game, back to Dallas, and then up to Minnesota. So when you combine that travel, being out on the road with guys being out, it's just tough to keep bringing the energy. And again, you tip your hat to Minnesota to some degree. I personally, it was a lot of clown type of action for like you know that the Lakers had one hand tied behind their back. Mm-hmm. Act like you won a basketball game before. There was a lot of showing out and extra stuff that I hope the Lakers remember.
Oh, you mean it wasn't Game 7 of the Western Conference?
I hope the Lakers remember that the next time they see this team.
Yeah, they've gotten blown out twice by them, so they better remember. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that there's a period like that ride from the hotel to the gymnasium is critical. You know, you're thinking about, and sometimes I just feel like, damn, what do we got to do? You know, it seems like we get up, start winning games, and all of a sudden, so I could just tell, like the doubt was there from the beginning, from my perspective, based on number of games I've seen.
I do want to get into AD, but first let's go back to Minnesota. LeBron is speaking with Mike and the media.
Here on Spectrum Sportsnet, tip-off is at 7 o'clock. As we say hello and welcome to Access Sportsnet Lakers, brought to you by your Southern California Toyota dealers. I'm Allie Clifton, joined by the 5-time champ, Derek Fisher, our Laker insider, Mike Bresnahan, the Hall of Famer, Big Game James, will join us in a minute, as well as Mike Trudell, live from Minnesota. And guys, there is so much. The last 48 hours has been constantly changing. So let's get right to it. For what we know as of right now, literally, the story all around the NBA has made its presence felt in Lakerland. Over the last 4 days, 6 Lakers have entered the league's health and safety protocols. THT, Dwight Howard, Malik Monk, Avery Bradley, Kendrick Nunn, and Wednesday night's hero, Austin Reeves. Russell Westbrook entered protocols yesterday, but was cleared to play earlier today. So, with that said, in a corresponding move, the Lakers have signed guard Isaiah Thomas. This will be Thomas's second stint with the Lakers since being traded from the Cavs to the Lakers in 2018. On Wednesday, Thomas dropped 42 points for the Grand Rapids Gold of the G League. Here is Isaiah tweeting yesterday after the news broke. As you could imagine, very pumped, excited, thankful, he says, for the opportunity to prove everyone wrong. Let's do this, Lakers. That chip on his shoulder has always been there. And we want to start there. We're going to get into COVID and all of that later in the show. But there's many ways in terms of this IT deal, Fish, that you can look at this. Because as of yesterday, when he was signed, Russell Westbrook was not available. This morning, Russ is now available. But all in all, IT's role starts tonight for this 10-day contract. What do you imagine it looking like?
That's a great question. I mean, it's not easy to, you know, even though he's been obviously playing in the G League and is really talented, it's not easy to just walk out on the court and play great in an NBA basketball game against the best players in the world. But if there's anyone that has the confidence and belief of self to pull it off, Isaiah is one of those guys. And when you look at that list of Lakers that have entered the health and safety protocols and not come out, you need bodies of any kind at this point. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a look at a guy that even for now, if after the 10 days he's not back, you're still getting a chance to see the fit in the locker room, the fit around the guys. Maybe there's a conversation to have later if he doesn't stick with the team right now.
If you're ever not worried about someone taking advantage of their opportunity, Isaiah Thomas is not that guy. Yeah. Slow grind has been his motto, and he's got this chance and opportunity.
Yeah, no doubt. I guess the quickest way back to the NBA is to light up the Fort Wayne Mad Ants for 42 points, 6 rebounds, and 8 assists in 43 minutes of game action the other night. So pretty big deal to have him do that in the first place. Keep in mind he's fought through a lot of adversity over the last few years, starting with a hip injury that kind of derailed his career. But now, obviously, back with the big leagues. It's a 10-day, what they call a hardship waiver. So it's not, usually 10-day contracts do not appear in the NBA until January. Obviously, tough times call for new measures. James and Isaiah Thomas joining the Lakers. We'll see how much playing time he gets tonight.
Joining us here in studio, the Hall of Famer.
Slid in here real nicely, didn't I?
Yeah, you did. Made it look so smooth.
Yeah, I mean, Isaiah Thomas, I mean, he's been proven over his career. I mean, obviously, when he was injured in Boston, kind of took some spills and kind of ended up out of the league. But, you know, during these crises with COVID, you know, everybody's desperate. Losing a lot of players. He's a